me, if you can do this, can you give me a 30-second elevator speech as to why we need a single payer system?
Sure. Our healthcare system today is profoundly dysfunctional, with physicians just at the end of their rope about all the bureaucracy we have to practice with patients literally dying for being unable to afford healthcare, being able to afford to see physicians, and the country as a whole is wasting a huge amount of money on this system that we're propping up. And the only ones who really win from the way it's set up is, frankly, the insurance industry, and then the exorbitantly priced drugs and devices. So it turns out that the rest of the world does organizes healthcare finance in a completely different way in every country. Every country is unique, but in general, they take the same approach of having the entire nation cohesively organizing the finance of healthcare. And so that's what we should do. We should make the health insurance function disappear into the background, just make sure everybody has robust access to comprehensive healthcare, but preserve and protect the core of what makes American medicine so great, which is, in my mind, the independent, creative, aggressive, organized approach of physicians. We have one of the best delivery sides of the healthcare in the world if you can get into it. So we need not to disrupt that. We need to maybe improve it in some ways. So single payer would mean pull the finances out, just make sure everybody has access to healthcare, but enable physicians to practice in the ways that we've been trained, that we know, and with far less encumbrances like we have today. That makes sense.
I love, listen, we know there are many blemishes within our healthcare system. And I think at the end of the day, we as physicians, we will always do our job. We are the ones who are providing the care. I've never turned somebody away because they couldn't afford to pay. Whether it's indigent population or however it works, poor insurance, that's not why we got into this. I can say that with pretty certain confidence level. My concern, one of my concerns, I should say, as we go to a single payer system, and I've traveled internationally and I've seen certain things that were alarming to me as well. So, we want to be the leaders. We are trying to function independently, but aren't we giving up a certain amount of autonomy in doing so by turning the reins over to a single payer system or the government in a sense? And once they have that complete hold on things, now they have the ability to move the goalposts, and then we can never go back. So I think, and I'm not just speaking for myself, this is the type of things that I hear from colleagues too. So, look, I love the idea that everybody should be covered. I love that. And what I alluded to in other countries, I've seen, it was almost like going in a Wayback Machine from Sherman and Peabody. I've visited places like Brazil and even Cuba, where the healthcare system is run by the government. And yet I found that the access to care may have been there, but what they had access to was very substandard compared to what we have here in the US. Yet I also found, specifically in like Brazil, people who had their own independent or private insurance had the best access, or they went to the nicer hospitals. They were able to use cutting edge technologies, whereas the patients who did not have that had no such type of access. So it's like, well, what are we really providing here? So that's one of the starting points. So how do we when we give up this control to the government and things become ultimately dictated to us, how are we going to improve things? Where's going to be the burning desire to improve things or to make things better? Where's going to be the incentive as a provider to do more versus, okay, as in Cuba, doesn't matter if you see 10 patients a day or 100 patients a day, you're going to be paid $40 per month. That's it. That's how it goes. So where is our incentive to do better? And that's one of the things that I see as being a concern. So
that's why we're not going to build a system based on Cuba's model. No one that I know is proposing that. But in Cuba's defense, we must point out that they dramatically turned around their life expectancy so that they have far longer life expectancy now than they did before their program. And our life expectancies, on the other hand, have been going south, so to speak. So the Cuban system is nothing like what I want, but we should not completely disregard it.
So what is their life expectancy in Cuba versus the U.S.? Just since
I don't have it. I don't have it at my fingertips. I wasn't expecting that,
I'm just curious. Not to debate. I was just curious if
what I can tell you is that the system that's much more akin to what we are discussing is the Canadian system. So we can do far better than the Canadians have done and how they set it up, because we can learn from the things that they didn't know when they set up their system. But the model essentially is much more like the Canadian system, much more like, frankly, traditional Medicare. And in these models, the insurance function recedes into the background, and medical practice decision-making falls more on we, the physicians. Today, you know, if you see a traditional Medicare patient, right, and they have Medigap, let's say, so that they have the improvements, you see one of those patients, you have far more freedom to practice the way you want. Traditional Medicare does not tell you, they don't do prior authorizations and step therapies and all that crazy stuff, whereas virtually every other patient you see outside of traditional Medicare, so Medicare Advantage patients, nightmares, nightmares in trying to get care if you're not doing something very limited. Medicare Advantage, commercial insurance, that's where we've lost control of our practices. But I don't know about you. I mean, I don't do surgeries, but I have friends who do, and they've consistently told me that when they see somebody from Medicare Advantage or from commercial insurance, it's, oh God, this is why I have all the staff at my office. I have to have a whole army of people to navigate that. Whereas when I see from someone with traditional Medicare, I can just, I can do what I need to do. That's the model we're talking about. For example, our system today is so complex that very few of our medical residents, when they graduate, choose to go into a solo or small group practice because the bureaucracy today is too overwhelming. So I never chose a small group. I always chose a large group. I personally prefer that. But a lot of docs would prefer to be in those smaller group settings, and you can, and actually you do, in traditional Medicare and in Canadian system, where they do actually have much more in the way of small group organized physicians, because they don't need to have legions of people doing all the contract negotiations and all this other work that just doesn't exist.